Hello everyone, thank you for joining me again. Tonight we're going to go over Torchbearer fleets and the Torchbearer fleet crusade list in the new White Dwarf issue 466. And we're going to go over a brief history of the Torchbearer fleets and what they are, what their purpose is, and then we're going to go over the nuts and bolts of the use of the crusade rules for them found in this issue of White Dwarf. For those of you who are not familiar, Torchbearer fleets are about the creation of Primaris Space Marines and introducing them to chapters that have been cut off in either Imperium Nihilus or else on questing chapters such as the Black Templars, which are scattered and don't have a set homeworld. And it's about getting the new Primaris Marines and technology to these chapters, and these are small fleets that were organized. And we'll get started here in just a second. So the first place we really heard about the Torchbearer fleets was in the November 2019 White Dwarf issue, on their section on the era of the Indomitus Crusade. As you can see, they first only got little brief mentions in little tiny boxes such as the Resurrection of Angels and the Torchbearers. This article went on to do a pretty good job of describing Torchbearers as well as hub fortresses. And on a side note, this particular style of article that White Dwarf published there for a while about the Indomitus Crusade was personally one of my favorites. Really well written, up there in my opinion with the old Forge World kind of writing. In a lot of ways gave you a much better outline and layout, big picture, and really introduced some really good and well thought out concepts, such as the Torchbearers. Now, you can find a lot more on what a Torchbearer fleet is in this issue of White Dwarf here, issue 466. The first one also has Flashpoint Octarius, it's just after that. And let's delve in a little bit, shall we? To really get a good full flavor of what a Torchbearer fleet is, or a Torchbearer expedition, I have to recommend reading A Light in Darkness in this issue of White Dwarf. It does a very good job of laying it all out. There's also an excellent short story afterwards that kind of gives you a sense for how to run a Torchbearer campaign, or at least a game in a Torchbearer campaign. And now that we've talked about the backstory on this, as far as where you can find it, let's go over a brief overview, shall we? Most Torchbearer forces are made up primarily of Custodes, Adeptus Mechanicus, Sisters of Silence, and of course the Unnumbered Sons, the Grey Shields, Primaris Marines made by Belisarius Cawl. These are quick ad hoc formations created by Guilliman, sent out ahead of the Indomitus Crusade to cross the Great Rift and to bring the gift of Primaris technology and reinforcements to chapters out in Imperium Nihilus or other chapters that are scattered. The other reason to send these forces out is to reach chapters that Guilliman is aware are on the edge of annihilation. And with them they bring how to create Primaris Marines, reinforcements in the form of Primaris Marines, new technologies, new weapons, and the like. Now, the reason the Custodes are involved is some chapters might question the gift, might question where this is coming from. Is this chaos? Is this heresy? With the Custode right there in front of you, it is a gift from the Emperor, and you had best not refuse it. A number of these expeditions also set out with members of the Sisterhood of Sisters of Silence, simply because they would help calm the warp and ease the travel through the Great Rift, as well as their capacity as witch seekers gives them an investigative technique and brings that to the table for them, because a lot of these chapters have to be found, and it is going to take quite a search. So you end up with Custodes, Sisters of Silence, Mechanicus because of all the technical aspects, and again, as I said, Grey Shields. In the White Dwarf article, we're going to go over what is called the search phase and the mustering of a Torchbearer's force. Right off the bat, you need to decide what is the Adeptus Astartes chapter you're trying to reinforce or find and locate, and you note it down on your order of battle. And then you also have to start a search points tally for your Crusade force. This is pretty much the whole basis of the Torchbearers force. Now, when creating a Torchbearers order of battle for the first time, and when adding units to it during your search phase of your Crusade campaign, you can only include the following: Adeptus Mechanicus units, Adeptus Custodes units, and Adeptus Astartes Primaris units with the Grey Shields chapter keyword. Now, Grey Shields chapter tactics, they have the following. They're not considered to be the successor of any chapter yet, so you just get the blooded reinforcements. Add 1 to the leadership characteristic of models with this tactic, and each time a unit with this tactic is selected to shoot or fight, you can re-roll 1 hit roll when resolving that unit's attacks. So these are, they're Primaris Space Marines, but they're not, they don't have all the tricks and gadgets of a true chapter yet. That's why you have to go and find them. Now, when you go to muster the Torchbearers army, gets the Torchbearers keyword. A Torchbearers detachment counts as an Adeptus Mechanicus, Adeptus Custodes, and Adeptus Astartes detachment for the purpose of any detachment abilities your army gains, i.e. stratagems you can use. When mustering your army, in order to include any Adeptus Mechanicus units that do not have the troops battlefield role, your army must include at least 1 Adeptus Mechanicus troop unit. So you can't just start off with Rust Stalkers and the like, you have to have some of the troops included. In order to have any Adeptus Custodes units that do not have the troops battlefield role, your army must contain at least 1 Adeptus Custodes troops unit. In order to have any Adeptus Astartes units that do not have the troops battlefield role, your army must contain at least 1 Adeptus Astartes troops unit. The inclusion of a Torchbearers unit in your army does not prevent any units in your army from using any rules that require every model in your army to have the particular keyword. While in a Torchbearers detachment, Adeptus Astartes units and all the models in them can still gain the chapter tactic regardless of what other units may be in the detachment. And when they're talking chapter tactic, they are talking blooded reinforcements, because this entire thing is about searching for your chapter that you are trying to reinforce. And when you play a game with with this, you have a number of agendas. Now, let's go over real quick these agendas. Augury data, Torchbearers agenda. If selected this agenda, then after both sides have finished deploying, your opponent must set up 1 objective marker anywhere on the battlefield that is not within 9 inches of any battlefield edge. This objective marker represents a decaying intel node, but it does not count as an objective marker for any rule purposes other than for this agenda. At the end of each battle round, if you control the decaying intel node, your Crusade force gains 1 search point. At the end of the battle, you may select 1 unit from your army that was within range of the decaying intel node for 1 or more battle rounds while you controlled it. That unit gains 2 experience points. Basically, if you read the thing, it's a think Imperial probe droid or something to gather data. It's been crashed. You need it. And every time you control it, you gain a search point. And your search points are vital for you actually completing what you're after. Now the next one is Emissary Down, where you're basically hunting down someone who has information for your search. If you selected this agenda, then after both sides have finished deploying, set up 1 objective marker in the center of the battlefield. This objective marker represents a crash survivor, but it does not count as an objective marker for any rules purposes other than for this agenda. At the end of the battle, if you control the crash survivor, your Crusade force gains D6 search points. Select 1 unit from your army within range of the crash survivor, and that unit gains 3 experience points. Now, I'm not telling you how to run it, but the downed Imperial pilot from, I believe it was Battle of Macragge box set would be a pretty good model to use as your crash survivor, but feel free to use whatever kind of model you want. If you want to even start fiddling around with something from, say, High-Tech Miniatures or some of the other ones that put out models for various sci-fi things, I'd say go for it. It makes a great objective marker in a case like this. The next one you can get is Machine Spirit Scripture Logs. Okay. When selected this agenda, after both sides have started deploying, finish deploying, your opponent must set up one objective marker anywhere on the battlefield that is not within 3 inches of any battlefield edge and not within 6 of either player's deployment zone. The objective marker represents a damaged servitor, but it does not count as an objective marker for any rules purposes other than for this agenda. Okay? Adeptus Mechanicus character units from your army can attempt the following actions. Harvest Scripture Logs. Action. At the end of your movement phase, one Adeptus unit from your army that is within range of the damaged servitor can start to perform this action. This action is completed at the end of the turn. When this action is completed, roll 1d6. On a 2-up, your Crusade force gains d6 search points, and the damaged servitor is removed from the battlefield. And if Adeptus Mechanicus character unit successfully performs this action, it gains 5 experience points. And finally, Directive Primus, Torchbearers agenda. Personal glory and honor must be sacrificed by a Torchbearer fleets in pursuance of their true directive, finding the chapter in need of the reinforcements. The fleet's forces are focused on locating clues of the chapters passing in this region above all else. If you selected this agenda at the end of the battle, do not select a unit marked for greatness. Normally you get 1 unit that gets 3 XP. Instead, if you won your battle, your Crusade force gains 4 search points. Otherwise, your Crusade force gains 1 search point. And that is the agendas. Now let's go over the 2 requisitions for the search phase. The first one is scour the area. 3 requisition points, so it's an expensive one. When a Torchbearer fleet's sensors uncover a wealth of potential traces, the fleet's entire resources are bent towards scouring the region for every hint of the chapter's whereabouts. Purchase this requisition at any time. Double the number of search points you receive from your next battle. So that'll allow you to really quickly gain more search points. And you might be wondering, what good are all these search points? And here it comes. It is Convergence of the Signs. Again, 3 requisition points, so not cheap. You purchase this requisition at any time if your Crusade force has at least 15 search points. Roll 1d6 and consult the table below to see if your force has found the Adeptus Astartes chapter they have been sent to reinforce. If your Crusade force successfully finds the chapter, it moves to the bonding phase and its supply limit is increased by 15. I'm not going to go over the bonding phase and bonding it. I'm just going to go over the search, just because you can run a really nice quick little campaign of maybe 7-8 games just about finding a chapter. So as you can see, the more search points you have, the easier it is to find your chapter. 15 to 17, 6 up. 18 to 25 up. So again, those search points really matter. And in 8 or 9 games, you can probably rack up 20-some search points and run a nice little campaign. This also provides you with a number of special traits you can give to character units that are in a Torchbearer, such as Martial Exemplar. In this your command phase, select one friendly Adeptus Astartes core unit with 6 inches of this model until the start of your next command phase. Each time a model that unit makes a melee attack, you can re-roll the hit roll. Basically, yeah, your guy is standing there kind of like a chaplain, only more, but he's a custode, and he inspires them to even greater deeds. Fearless Fleet Warden. After this model makes a charge move until the end of the phase, this model gains the following ability. Fearless Fleet Warden. While any friendly Torchbearers unit is within 12 inches of this model, each time that unit declares a charge, if that charge targets any units that are within engagement range of this model, you can re-roll the charge roll. Now they also have things for Adeptus Astartes characters, tactical coordination. In your command phase, select one friendly Adeptus Custodes infantry unit within 3 inches of this model. Until the start of your next command phase, instead of following the normal rules for rapid-fire weapons, models in that unit shooting Guardian Spears or Castellan Axes may make double the number of attacks if any of the following apply. Shooting model's target is within half the weapon's range. The shooting model is infantry, and the unit remains stationary in your previous movement phase. The shooting model is a Terminator or Biker. Unity of purpose. In your command phase, select one friendly Torchbearers unit within 3 inches of this model. Till the start of your next command phase, each time a combat attrition test is taken for that unit, ignore any and all modifiers. So as you're seeing, these character units, these additional battle traits you can gain, all are meant to complement each other. So you have some Custode things that complement Astartes. Astartes things which complements Custodes and increases their ability and gives you more synergy between them. Now, Adeptus Mechanicus Tech Priest units, you have Master of Munitions. Once per battle round, this model is on the battlefield and you use the Adeptus Astartes War Gear Stratagem or Adeptus Custodes War Gear Stratagem. Reduce the command point cost of the stratagem by 1 command point. Note that the command point cost is only reduced by 1 CP for that use of the stratagem. Any future usages of it cost a normal amount of CPs. And Primogenitor Mechanism. If this model is part of your Crusade army and was not destroyed during the battle, then at the end of the battle you can ignore 1 failed out-of-action test taken for an Adeptus Astartes vehicle or Adeptus Custodes vehicle unit. That test is treated as having been passed instead. So again, all of these character traits that you can give members of a Torchbearer fleet are meant to work together. All 3 branches coming together, working together, complementing each other. Then we have the Crusade Relics. You have a Stalker Helm. Each time you select a target for a ranged weapon the bearer is equipped with, you can ignore the Lookout Sir roll. Each time the bearer makes a ranged attack, add 1 to the attack's hit roll and add 1 to the attack's wound roll. You can take a Blade of Bonding, which I personally found this one a little odd, just because it talks about Xenophase blades and that, and you have Custodes with, which, yes, the Assassins use them, but I don't think most Custodes are going to be okay with it. But again, it's also a mastercrafted power sword, relic blade, and the like. It's a Blade of Bonding, +2 strength, -5 AP, 2 damage, melee. Each time an attack is made with this weapon, an unmodified wound roll of 6 inflicts 2 mortal wounds in addition to any normal damage. So yeah, you have quite the power sword there on your captain who's looking to join the chapter. And you have Apothecary 1. Apothecary is Sanguinary Priest only. Once per game in your command phase, the bearer can use this relic. If it does, select one friendly Adeptus Astartes Infantry or Adeptus Astartes Biker unit within 3 inches of the bearer until the start of your next command phase. Each time a model in that unit would lose a wound, roll a d6. On a 5 up, that wound is not lost. So you basically get feel no pain with a Apothecary nearby a unit. And you get the Orb of Cleansing. Once per battle, at the end of your movement phase, the bearer can unleash this relic. If it does, roll a 1d6 for each enemy Psyker unit within 12 inches. On a 2 or 3, that enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. On a 4 or 5, it suffers d3 mortal wounds. And on a 6, it suffers 3 mortal wounds. Till the start of your next movement phase, the bearer gains the following ability. Nimbus of Null Fields. While a Psyker unit is within 12 inches of this unit model, subtract 1 from psychic tests taken from that unit. So, not bad, just a nice little set of relics and battle traits to further upgrade your Torchbearers list. So how does one run a Torchbearers campaign? What kind of games is one playing? What kind of missions are you playing? basically you run any crusade mission, you just start throwing in those additional agendas. A good example would be running the new boarding actions mission out of the Amidst the Ashes campaign pack for the Book of Fire, and just change the storyline a little bit. You found a ship that was bringing supplies to the chapter you're looking for, and said ship is instead been overrun with gene stealers and tyranids, and you need to get on board, take it back over, and also, find the information on where they were going to rendezvous. Earn those search points, get some rough ideas, and it'll give you a chance to play around. It's a good, easy, match. It's only 25 power level, and so it plays relatively quick. And that's one nice thing I really like about the Torchbearers list. It's in a month you can play 8 or 9 games, or 2 months, 8 or 9 smaller games, and you can run a whole campaign with it. And this is just one example of the type of game you can play. Or perhaps you're running a other mission on a planet where, say, the chapter you're looking for evacuated the citizens after a zombie plague outbreak and demonic incursion that was just too great for this small Arctic outpost. So they evacuated people, and you are now trying to go in and get into the facilities to try to get an indication of where they went. Basically, you can run this scenario like 30 Days of Night gone way wrong, or even something like John Carpenter's The Thing. That's one of the beauties of this list. It tailors itself to running small themed games. You run 8 or 9 of them, and pretty much at that point you can determine whether or not you have found your chapter. Think of it almost as like the old Battlestar Galactica. This week in Battlestar Galactica, or in Torchbearer Fleet, we've arrived at this planet and it's overrun with orcs that mostly had their war machines smashed because a raid by the chapter we're searching for hit here. We're going to go in, try to find a down drop pod and recover data on where they were off to next, or where they were coming from, and give an indication of where they're currently operating out of. Like I said, Torchbearer list, very easy to use, great for a good little mini campaign, maybe take a month, maybe 2 at most. And again, you don't have to go really high point level with it, just 25, just running at mostly 25 power level. You can do 50 or more, but you start off small and just work your way up. I mean, it's a good way of running a kind of a soup army for a bit, and allows you time to build up. Say you are about to start a full-fledged Primaris Marine. Well, they don't all have to be fully painted. They can be mostly gray because, hey, they're gray shields. That's one of the beauties of this. And it lets you run around with some pretty fun and themed scenarios. And that's why I like it. And at some point in the near future, there is a possibility that we will run a campaign on this site. Just a Torchbearers campaign, short one, maybe 6-7 games, and just see what happens. Play around with it, and hopefully it'll be something you'll enjoy, and we'll go from there. And if you've liked this video, please hit like down below, and feel free to hit subscribe. All right, thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I've enjoyed making it.